Diaz, explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Never testified from the table before. Nice to have a different experience here. Senate Bill 1082 makes it clear that a parent is entitled to review the curriculum of a sex education course that's being provided to their child and have the child bring home that curriculum for the parent to be able to review to make an informed decision. With that, I ask your support.
All right. Like that layout. Sir Powell, do you have any questions?
I guess not.
I
understand it.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
All right. Well, we'll open up public testimony this time. We have Jennifer Allman. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Allman, and I'm the Executive Director of a Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops, testifying in support of Senate Bill 1082. I apologize, my testimony might be longer than the bill layout. As primary and principal educators for their children, parents have the right and responsibility to impart their values in all aspects of their children's education, particularly regarding human sexuality, which addresses questions about the fundamental nature and purpose of a human person. The state's role is secondary and serves to assist and support parents in the duty of educating their children. This bill will vastly improve parents' ability to determine what, if any, sexuality education is provided to their children by public schools. SB 1082 will allow parents to review all teaching materials, instructional materials, and other teaching aids used in the classroom for human sexuality instruction, just as they are entitled to review curriculum materials of every other subject taught to their children. Currently, Texas statute merely requires a school district to make human sexuality curriculum materials available for reasonable public inspection. Reasonable public inspection is not defined, and what might be considered reasonable by a school district could in fact be burdensome and unreasonable to a busy working parent. This simple fix to our current law will foster transparency and enable parents to make informed decisions and, if necessary, opt their children out of human sexuality instruction. Pope Francis writes in Amoris Laetitia, The Joy of Love, that the state offers educational programs in a subsidiary way, supporting parents in their indeclinable role. Parents themselves enjoy the right to choose freely the kind of education which they wish to give their children in accordance with their convictions. Schools do not replace parents, but complement them. We believe that Senator Campbell's bill acknowledges and respects this, and we support Senate Bill 1082.
All right. Any questions, members? Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Deborah Simmons.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Simmons. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1082. Since 2012, I have attended SHAC meetings in many school districts, advised parents on Texas Education Code 28.004, and reviewed school district communications and curricula. Overwhelmingly, parental notifications, including handbooks and written notices of human sexuality instruction, provide inadequate information regarding the curriculum materials. School districts adopt standards, scope and sequence, resources, and then curriculum before revealing, or in some cases, before developing actual lessons that will be used for human sexuality instruction in the classroom. Districts must currently provide written notice of instruction and provide materials for reasonable public inspection. Written notice is often buried in the handbook with language out of the education code, but very little details on the contents of the curriculum taught in the school district. In November 2020, the State Board of Education adopted New Health Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, also known as TEKS, including 617 student expectations across 6 strands covering 24 topics for kindergarten through 12th grade. 118 of those 617 student expectations are in the reproductive and sexual health strand from the 4th grade through high school Health 1 and 2. Parents deserve full and fair disclosure of the health curriculum, particularly human sexuality instruction materials. Please support bill language to improve instructional material transparency. Thank you.
All right. Any questions, members? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Mary Castle.
Good morning, Chairman Taylor, members of the committee. My name is Mary Elizabeth Castle, and I'm the Policy Advisor for Texas Values Action. And I'm here to support SB 1082 by Senator Donna Campbell. In 2018, the Fort Worth ISD faced a lot of backlash from parents because they were denied access to the sixth grade education curriculum. Other parents have been told by their children that teachers told them not to show the sex ed materials to their parents. And even here in Austin, the school district has been guilty of hosting sex ed curriculum review meetings at difficult hours for working parents in their central downtown office. And once parents got there, they had to share one copy of a curriculum, and there were a large group of parents, almost 50 there. AISD has had a pattern of trying to avoid parents looking at the materials. And as I have testified before in front of this committee, parents need parameters in place that allow them easy access to the materials. And SB 1082 would allow for that. It would make sure that schools know that parents have the right to view all curriculum materials for sex education, and that a student is allowed to bring those materials home with them. Transparency is important, and parents testified at an Austin ISD meeting in 2019 that they were not notified of new sex education curriculum that was being proposed, and they disagreed with their contents. And even some parents who were bilingual expressed that they were not given notice in Spanish about the sex education curriculum. And even others said that they wish that they had a chance to look at that curriculum even as it was being taught. Now, you will hear a lot of testimony today from different parents from around the state and even here in Austin who have a lot of concerns about looking at this material. But this bill will definitely solve those problems and help parents have more of an active role in what their kids are learning. And it just makes sure, just like with other courses in education, like they can currently do, they can take those materials. They don't have to go to a library anymore, and they can have full access to that, even if it's something as elective as sex education. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you.
Carol Ayala? Carol. Overflow room. Here she comes. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. My name is Carol Ayala, and I'm here today representing myself as a former public school teacher and director of Concerned Parents of Texas, an organization dedicated to bringing awareness to parents concerning graphic sex ed and LGBT indoctrination. We are in favor of this bill, and this is why. Because it has come to our attention repeatedly from parents all over Texas that once they begin to exercise their parental right to know what their kids are learning in human sexuality classes, they encounter roadblocks. For example, here, if you go to the local school district and a parent calls the school and requests to see the curriculum, they've been told that they need to meet with the principal or arrange a time to see the curriculum in the library with a librarian present. As a matter of fact, our local Austin ISD Student Health Advisory Council, which helps decide what's taught in our schools when it comes to human sexuality, presented a scope and sequence and called it a curriculum. The scope refers to topics and areas of development within a curriculum, and the sequence is the order in which the skills are taught. But they called it a curriculum, which is actually the course or content of the whole program. Why would our local shack present only the scope and sequence? Could it be to keep from sharing the actual details because people had many, many questions and objected to them? Parents who have questions, listen to this. Parents who have questions or objections are often told this, and they're taxpayers. They're told, just opt your kid out. Or, worse, get out of our school and go somewhere else. It's true that Texas does allow the opt-out option, but how can you know if you want to opt out unless you know what's in it? Please vote this bill through so parents can make a well-informed decision where it concerns such sensitive topics such as these.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Members, any questions? Senator Hall.
Thank you for your testimony. Someone experienced on both sides of this issue that really understands it. Are you comfortable that the way this bill is written, that there's no wiggle room for the schools to get around not providing all of the information that Senator Campbell wants to make sure is going to happen? Is this broad enough to cover it so they can't give us a Cliff Notes version?
It seems so, as long as and I read this again this morning, it includes all instructional materials, those that are given to the teachers to use, as well as the materials that all the children will be exposed to, including the supplemental materials, and I would include teacher training.
Include teacher training as part of it?
Yes, because it's different. And we know that because we have done many PIRs, and we have seen teacher training materials, and they're very different than the material itself.
Okay. Okay, so one other question on the issue of opt-in or opt-out. What would be your preference?
Opt-in.
Opt-in?
Yes, because they would have to make, as a teacher, I remember sending home all the paperwork to the parents, and they have to literally sign all the documents saying, yes, I want this, I want to do this, I want field trips, I want my kids to be on videos or taking pictures of. That's opting in. That should be the same thing for sex ed, except we love the 2 weeks before it's actually going to be taught. So they will be cognizant because it's overwhelming at the beginning of the year.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Senator Paxton.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you so much. As a former teacher myself, I appreciate your comment about teaching materials being different than the curriculum or the student materials, right? And many times there will be, for example, activities suggested, topics of discussion suggested in the teaching materials that are not in the student material. And I don't know if you might have some examples of that might kind of clarify that for people.
Yes, I do. We actually, on one of our PIRs, we got some materials that stated just for the teacher that heteronormativity was dangerous. And so they needed to not use the terms mother and father, sisters, brothers, and other terms that we use for family. And so they in that material was not put into the kids' material. But it said that you had to teach different ways and use different terms, but to not use family terms.
Okay, thank you.
And this was elementary.
Wow. Senator Lucio.
Where did you teach, please?
I taught my last 11 years here in Austin ISD.
And your entire career was in this area?
No, I've taught in 8 different schools. My husband is a civil servant, and so we traveled quite a bit. And so I've taught private school, but mostly public school. And so I've taught in South Texas near Corpus Christi. I've taught in Florida, in South Florida. I've taught in private school here in town, but mainly 11 years of my 20 years in Austin ISD.
So you're talking with experience here today.
I believe so.
I suspect that you have obviously talked to parents and maybe even other teachers who want to make sure that they're doing the right thing or have the right approach on this issue, correct? Because it's a very sensitive issue.
Absolutely. And we advocate for the side of transparency and partnership with schools. Teachers are partners, but we, as teachers, we are not the ultimate authority on what kids learn. Even the Texas Code provides that parents can take their kids out of class when it conflicts with their personal beliefs and morals, and we have that in the Education Code.
Thank you for your excellent testimony.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions, members? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you all for your service.
David Walls. Real quick, members, have the clerk call the roll.
Chairman Taylor,
Here.
Senator Lucio,
Here.
Senator Betancourt, Senator Hall,
Here.
Senator Hughes, Senator Menendez, Senator Paxton, Senator Perry, Senator Powell, Senator Schwartner, Senator West.
I think we have a quorum present. Go ahead, Mr. Walls, if you would introduce yourself, give us your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Taylor and members of the committee. My name is David Walls, and I'm the Vice President of Texas Values Action. I'm here to testify in favor of SB 1082. Thank you for hearing this important bill. I'm also speaking today as a father of 3 young children that has seen firsthand how far a local school district will go to keep parents in the dark about their sex education curriculum. My family lives within Austin ISD, which in 2019 passed a radical curriculum that would, among many troubling things, force elementary children to question their very foundation by encouraging them to question their biological sex. It would inaccurately teach that doctors assign at birth what sex a baby is. It teaches children to challenge fellow students who hold to a biblical view of marriage and sexuality. It introduces bizarre and unscientific teaching materials like the gingerbread person. In the lead up to this curriculum, the district gave parents one in-person meeting opportunity to view the curriculum, and that was in the last week of school, and they provided one copy of the curriculum for about 50 parents, myself included, to fight over in a very limited amount of time. This curriculum and the lack of transparency was why my wife and I pulled our kids out of Austin ISD schools. But thankfully, SB 1082 would add much-needed protections for parents by ensuring that they have the ability to review all human sexuality materials and giving parents the right to request sex education materials to be taken home for review, which is a much needed improvement on the unworkable provision that's currently in law that only allows for reasonable public inspection. The primary responsibility and authority over a child's education lies with the child's parents. Public policy works best when it aligns with this fundamental truth. I believe SB 1082 is an important step the state of Texas can take to protect parental rights. I encourage you to support this bill and to pass it out of committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, members. Any questions?
I have.
Senator Lucio.
Mr. Wells, thank you for your testimony. I'm sitting here wondering, and I don't like to hear, especially because I respect school boards a lot. They're elected men and women to direct, or to pass public policy that will be used, obviously, in the approach of educating our children. And when it comes to sex education, have you found that most school boards support an effort to keep, people from knowing what their intentions are, what their approach is, or what their method of instruction is on sex education?
Yeah.
What is it that you've found? Because I know you all work real hard.
Yeah.
In your organization to try to get the necessary background before you even come before a committee, so you can maybe address some questions as I'm asking you now.
We've become aware organizationally of several issues, but my primary experience here before the committee is what I experienced in Austin, which is where our home is. And certainly I think it's fair to say that the school district in Austin tried in every way to prevent parents from knowing what curriculum was coming. And then as Ms. Ayala shared, the process, under the current law, the process in which the steps the parent would have to go through to actually do the curriculum at the school is too difficult for most parents to try to go through. So I think this SB 1082 would add important improvements, and certainly it's not my testimony that the way Austin ISD handled this is hopefully not representative of most school districts across the state of Texas, but that is indeed the case of what's happened right here in our own backyard.
Well, I always believe in a universal way of approaching things personally, and I would like very much, obviously I do support this bill, and I want, what I'd like to see is, I want to make sure, and I'm thinking about my brother, Senator Campbell, my brother Jesse, taught for many years at a school named Lincoln School, and it was a school for young ladies who unfortunately become pregnant as teenagers, as young as, I don't even want to state it, but young, pretty young, too young. And what I'm trying to say is somewhere along the line, we need to make sure that we, at the very least, talk to our parents if they don't want their child to be receiving any kind of sex education, that they're in charge. I respect that, but there's got to be some communication somewhere between them and their children, because too much of this is happening in our society, and I think we all know that. We hear about it every day, even within our own families. A niece, a cousin, or someone close by, our neighbor. This is happening, so we do have an issue here and I'm glad we're addressing it, because we got to come up with some solutions that will work and make sure that these young people don't alter their lives so much so, because most of them are having their babies, and I'm happy for that.
Amen.
But at the same time, it just changes their life completely in terms of the responsibility that they have, for that child that young lady is carrying. So that is my concern, as well as what we're trying to accomplish here, to make sure that we discuss the issue in a way where parents know that they have the ultimate responsibility. I have stated time and time again in this committee that I believe that the parents should take their child by the hand and take them to the school of their choice. They should know better where they'd like to have their child go to school. But at the same time, not all of them are completely versed on, what education is all about, unfortunately. And I have a lot of poverty in my district, for example, and I know other members do too, that unfortunately causes that lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of education, actually, in many respects, schooling, and then not knowing what to do with their children. So I know I'm long-winded, but it's an issue that I want to see us make a big dent on, because it's going to continue to happen, and I just fear that it will end up tragically, unfortunately, for some people.
Well, appreciate your leadership on those issues.
Any other questions, members? Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
Carol Federick.